Welcome to Storytelling.
This week's guest is a prominent international speaker, thought leader, and founder of Effortless Global. She has over 30 years of experience in inspiring and motivating individuals to harness the power of their minds to achieve extraordinary results. She is known for her Effortless Framework, a system designed to help individuals and businesses achieve success without the typical stress and grind associated with high achievement. Please welcome Guinevere Ellis.
Hello, Guinevere, and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Debbie. Thank you for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here.
Guinevere, you've helped so many people redefine success and achieve it with ease rather than stress. But before you developed the Effortless Framework, what was your personal definition of success?
You know, it's an interesting question, Debbie, because for years I followed what was a traditional path to success, which means that you studied hard at school. I went to university. I kept doing more and more exams to gain more and more qualifications so that I could step up that ladder. And then my aim when I was in my 20s was get to that six-figure income. That was kind of my aim. And I believed that the way to do that was to progress up the ladder, to go for jobs that had more responsibility and to do more qualifications and so on.
So how did your upbringing help you define that? Because you come from a very small town in Wales. How did that help to frame that definition as well?
You know, it's interesting. I come from the royal town of Carnarvon, which is where King Charles became Prince Charles, actually. So the investiture was there in 1969. So the town was the royal town of Carnarvon. It was quite well known, but it was quite a provincial town in that generally, people would leave school and stay in the area, work for the NHS. There was a huge hospital close by, or work for the local council, or become teachers and so on. So there were no particular role models in my town that I kind of aspired to be like. But I always had this feeling inside that I was destined for more. And I don't know where that came from, to be honest with you, Debbie, because these were the days before the internet. And I had no big role model that was hugely successful. But I kind of always had this feeling inside that I was destined for more.
So you embarked on a corporate career. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, so one of the things that my father did kind of lead me, or both of my parents really, was to follow a professional career. So I was always fascinated by human behavior. Right from when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I remember being very fascinated by certain things that people did. And I had these incidences when I was very young where I created specific results in my life that people would have thought were unrealistic. And I'm talking about things like being in a school play. I knew that I wanted to be in the school play, even though everyone told me that I couldn't be. So that's kind of how I started working with my own mind when I was very young. Coming back to your question about the corporate career. So I was always fascinated by behavior. So when it came to the point of going to university, I wanted to study psychology and linguistics, I remember. But my parents, as many parents, said, well, that's not something that's guaranteed a job. So you should do something professional. So I decided to study accounting and finance at university, but I did do psychology as my accessory subject. So the university I went to, you were allowed to do a minor. So my major was accounting, business and finance, and then my minor was psychology. And then I progressed rapidly into that life. I qualified as an accountant. I left university and then qualified doing my chartered accountancy exams. And I had a huge jump very early in my career when I was about 27. Actually, even before that, when I was 26, I was company accountant for the PGA golf clubs. And then at 27, I was head of finance for Airbus, which was British Aerospace at the time. And one of the things that I really remember was looking at these big jobs and everybody I knew family and friends and peers telling me there's no way you can go for those kind of jobs at this point in your career. You've just qualified. You're too young and inexperienced. How would you even do those jobs? And all I remember thinking was, why would you want to think that? Why would you want to believe that? I believed that I could do anything I put my mind to. So whilst I didn't know how I was going to do these roles, I knew that I was capable of it. Now, this isn't because I was a particularly good accountant, because I wasn't actually. It wasn't because I was technically better than other people, because I wasn't that either. And it also wasn't because I thought I will work harder than everyone else, because I didn't do that either. But I had a way of working with my own mind where I would choose to believe something that served me rather than spending time thinking of something that didn't. So I would never have entertained thoughts of how on earth am I going to do that job? Because I instinctively knew that that kind of thought process wouldn't serve me. So I chose to always think I can do anything I put my mind to. And so I went for these big jobs very early in my career, and I always got the jobs. And I never worked long hours in those jobs. I had this personal pledge that I didn't work late. Now, this is back in the 90s, so there was a culture of working hard, working long hours. I'm not saying I didn't work hard, because during the day I would be very productive, but I didn't work long hours because I didn't want to. I chose to believe I can finish at 5 o'clock and provide enough value during the day and be so unique in my way of working that is enough for the company without me needing to prove it by working long hours. And so I progressed very rapidly through my career. I worked for lots of well-known companies like the Rank organization in the finance, senior management in retail for the Argos Group, and manufacturing for British Aerospace, which became Airbus, and leisure and media and so on. But whilst I progressed rapidly in that corporate career, I wasn't enjoying it at all. I just knew I'm capable of doing whatever I want to do professionally. So I continued to move up the ladder, but I wasn't enjoying it.
So I want to go back, because there's several things that you've said about thought processes, the fact that you were interested in psychology as well, but your thought processes and the way you think, that started from a young age. How did that develop over time? And also, how did you go against the grain of other people's opinions as well?
Yeah, this is such a good question, because what I find in my work now is that's one of the biggest challenges for people is, going against that fear of criticism and, being different and so on. My very first memory of working with my own mind in a certain way, what happened was I was very young. So I must have been, 8 or 9, something like this. I was still at primary school. There was a school play going on. And I remember being so mesmerized by this dance group. There was a teacher doing some kind of choreography. It was called Dance of the Leaves. And they were dancing in this certain way to imitate leaves being blown in the wind in autumn. And I remember watching them and thinking, I'm going to be in that play. But at the time, I was too young. I was 2 years younger than the people that were in that dance group. And the teacher told me that's for that year. And my brother was in the same year as my brother was 2 years older than me in school. And these were people of his year that were in this dance group. So I was too young to be in it. And they already had 8 people in it. But I was so obsessed with wanting to be in this dance group. And what I remember, Debbie, is watching them practice day after day after day. And my friends would go outside to play at break time. And I would ask the teacher if I could go and watch them practicing. So I used to go and watch them practicing. I remember, it's so vivid, the memory in my mind of putting my hands against the glass door of the school hall and watching them practice. And every night I used to imagine it in my head that I was in this dance and I was one of the leads and I had this outfit on. And about a week or so, I can't remember exactly how long, but quite close to the date of the play, one of the girls couldn't participate. She'd broken her leg or something, and they had no substitutes. And the teacher came to me and said, I remember I was in class and they came into my class and said, can we have a word with Guinevere? And I stepped outside, and I remember I was so young, but I remember this because it had such an emotional impact on me. And the teacher said what had happened and said, we don't have any substitutes. Would you be able to step up and be in the group for the school play? And I said, yes. And I remember that day of the play, I was on stage with the other girls doing it. Now, I suppose this is my first experience of manifesting, but I didn't know that's what I had done. I had just become so obsessed with wanting to be in this. Now, of course, when you're young, you don't have clear memories of what you were thinking. But since, in later life, as I've developed my now awareness of the human mind, I have actually gone back and plotted my whole life in terms of jobs that I've had, successes, failures, relationships, how much I've earned. I've plotted everything from that time. So I could see, what was I thinking before getting that job? What was I thinking before that incident that wasn't great? What was I thinking when I was in that relationship? What was I thinking before I went for that interview? And by spending time doing this, I have been able to assess exactly how my thought processes are contributing to my success or failures. And so this has become part of who I am. But it wasn't until in later life that I realized that I was doing this, because, when you do something intuitively, you just kind of assume everyone else is doing it. It's not something you talk to people about. Do you visualize things when you're driving? Like when I get in the car, I'll kind of visualize the journey in my mind, so I know which is the quickest route and when I'm going to get to. And I kind of do this in my mind all the time. But I guess I just assumed everyone did it. So every job I went for and so on, every interview, I would kind of play it out in my mind the way I'd want it to go. And then I would go and then I would get offered the job. But I wasn't doing it intentionally. It's just the way that I'd become used to, or habitually used to, using my mind to get certain results. But it wasn't until when I was in my 40s that I realized what I was doing, and then was able to create a system. Because here's the thing. If we don't know how we create certain successes or failures, then we can't repeat it because we don't know how we did it. So I think one of my talents is being able to take complex things and create them into a system that is easy for people to follow. And so now I understand how I was doing everything, either success or failure. Then I've been able to create a system that other people can apply in their own lives.
I'm going to ask a question that you just asked yourself, actually. So what were you thinking at the time? What was that catalyst for change when you said, okay, I'm going to leave corporate and I'm going to go work for myself?
There was such a pivotal moment. I had my 2 children. They were very young at the time. And I was working for a professional firm, and I'm qualified in finance and in law. And so I was doing insolvency work, so companies going into liquidation and so on. And I was working for an organization which was quite far away from where I lived. And there was this one day I was stuck in traffic on the M25, which goes around London. And it was about an hour's journey from where I lived to this company that I was working for. And I was stuck in traffic and I felt utterly fed up and miserable. And if anyone who's ever been on the M25 will know what it's like in rush hour. So I was sitting in traffic, bumper to bumper. And on the side, it's like the universe sent me a sign or something, because where my car was kind of stopped in this traffic, I looked to the right and there was this huge billboard, these adverts that you have on these big billboards on the side of the motorway. And on it was a picture of a beach with sand and a palm tree and an ocean. And it was a bottle of beer, I think it was Budweiser, in the sand. And I remember looking at it and thinking, there's got to be a better way of life than this. I had followed all the rules of creating success working hard at school and then getting all my qualifications and pursuing a professional career and working up the ladder to the point that I was earning what generally most people would think was a good salary. And I was stuck in traffic, feeling utterly miserable. And my little children, they were very tiny, were with a nanny, I think. And I remember thinking, this isn't the kind of life I want. I don't want to do this. I don't like this job. I don't like this career. I've never really liked this career. And I want to be at home with my children. But the key thing, Debbie, is that, and your listeners might relate to this, at that point, the key thing to really take from this is that I had no idea how to change my life at that point. I think a lot of people will be in a point where they think they're miserable in their jobs or their career, but you have responsibilities, you have family or whatever you're providing for. And a lot of my clients, who come to me now, they say, it's all I had ever done. I had no idea what else I could do because I didn't know anything else. And so I remember sitting in that car thinking, I've got to build a different life. I hate this. I had no idea how or what I was going to do particularly, but I didn't know it was going to be something with the human mind and thought processes and stuff, because it was my passion. I just had this natural ability through all of my professional career. I did things differently. I used to look at the people in the organization and how could we change them to change the results of the business, rather than just doing strategy, which is what a lot of people, in finance generally do.
You've designed the strategy for success, or you've kind of worked out what the strategy for success is. What does success mean to you now?
Well, what I used to think success was a good job. What does that even mean? What that means when people generally say somebody's got a good job, what they actually mean is they earn more than the average person. That's what they generally mean. But what I've discovered is that, first of all, the money is not what makes something a good job, because I was always earning a good salary in the corporate space, more than many of my peers. But it wasn't a good job because I was miserable and I worked in company cultures that I didn't agree with and hierarchies and red tapes that drove me crazy. So were they good jobs? By the average person's or society's view, yes. But no, they weren't really, not really, because I didn't enjoy it. So that's what I used to think success was. What I now believe success is a truly fulfilled life, earning what you really want to earn. Now, people say money doesn't buy you happiness, and this is absolutely true. But here's a couple of key pointers that I've discovered over the last kind of decade. Number one, the only reason people earn whatever they earn in a year is because they don't know how to earn that much in a month. But the thing is that people think, oh, that's not possible because I'd have to work really, really, really hard. And that just isn't the case. I used to think I'm earning 6 figures. This is back in the corporate world. But if I wanted to earn 7 figures, I would have to sell my soul to the corporation and give up my life for that kind of money, because that's what people say. Oh, they want the pound of flesh. You hear people say this. So what I believe success is now is a life of choice, of freedom. Earning whatever you want to earn is one of the key aspects of having a fulfilled life. But ultimately, what all my clients want is freedom. Freedom on 3 planes. Number 1, financially. Number 2, time. So their time being their own, while still earning a lot more than they've ever earned. And thirdly, mental freedom. That mental peace, calmness of mind, tranquility, not waking up stressed or worried or full of fear in the middle of the night. And when you can achieve those 3 things, you can earn more than you've ever earned. Whatever that is. I'm not saying that everyone wants to be a millionaire. It's whatever will create the kind of life that you really want to live. How many times a year do you want to go on holiday? What kind of house would you love to live in? What location? What kind of car would you love to drive? What schools would you love your children to go to? So, what kind of life you'd love and then work out the cost of that. So earning enough to cover that cost that creates the life you want while still having time freedom and having calmness and peace of mind. That is what I now see as success.
And I suppose the question that follows on from that is how? And what is the effortless framework?
Thank you for asking that question, because the how is the $1,000,000 question, that I get asked all the time. Like, how do you do it? Because I talk about where my life used to be, this miserable corporate career where I was looking at that billboard thinking there's got to be a better way. And now I live the life that I've just explained, where I have that freedom. I'm fully present parent, and I have a successful business with clients all over the world. So what is the bit in the middle? That's what people want to know all the time. Like, how do you do it? So the key thing to understand is that your whole life is a direct reflection of you. Okay, so how much you earn, the kind of work that you're doing, the kind of relationships that you have and how much you earn and so on is a direct reflection of you, the person that you are. Now, when I say the person you are, what I mean is that, how do you view yourself, your kind of self-image and so on, self-worth. There's also aspects like, what do you believe is possible in life? It's a combination, actually, of, if we describe you, what I'm actually describing is within your subconscious mind, you have a huge kind of program. Now, I call it a program, but it's kind of years of conditioning. Okay, so the way you were brought up by your parents, the school that you went to, the society or environment you grew up in, culture and so on. Over the years, all of these things together have programmed you into who you are right now. And so who you are is certain belief systems, certain view of yourself, view of the world, view of success, how much you think is a lot of money, how much you think you could ever earn. All of these create who you are right now. And people say to me all the time, how can I create very different results and become a millionaire and have this life of freedom? And how can I do it? My answer is, you have to become the kind of person that has those results. You can't stay as you are, the person you are, creating your current results in every area of your life. You can't stay as that person and have the same self-image and the same self-worth feelings and the same beliefs and same habits and same block in your mind as regards money. You can't stay as that person and create different results. You just can't do it, because your life is a reflection of you. If you look at your life and you compartmentalize it, and you look at your career and you look at your finances and you look at your personal life and your relationships and your family and so on, if you look at all of those areas of your life, think to yourself, which one of these areas am I not satisfied with? And let's say that's your career, or let's say that's your finances or your relationships or whatever, whichever one. And it might be all of the above. If you look at those and you're not satisfied, then the you that is creating those results has to change. Mm-hmm. So if it's in a career, then the work that you're doing, the way you see yourself, the way you're pricing yourself, if the results you're getting in your career are not to your liking, then the you that is creating that has to change. So it all comes down to who we're being. And now, as a global entrepreneur, I am not the same me as I was when I was working in the corporate world, stuck on that M25. I don't have the same beliefs. I don't have the same self-image. I don't have the same habits. I don't have the same blocks around money. So I'm not the same person as I was then. So I think if anybody from that company met me now, they probably would barely recognize how I've changed, because I've become the kind of person that creates the results that I now have.
So, Guinevere, coming back to the effortless framework and how this all ties in, could you provide a further explanation on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason I called it effortless to start with is because there is this general belief that if you want to succeed, you have to go through struggle and stress and sacrifice and work really long hours and gradual progression over years and years and years, and that it's hard to do it. And that has never been my experience of success. And when I decided to come up with a framework, it was actually some of my clients that kept calling me the effortless entrepreneur. So when I first started my business, I grew it very rapidly. So within the first 6 months, I had clients in about, 18 countries or something, lots of countries all over the world. And one of my clients said to me, "You're so the effortless entrepreneur because you have no staff, no sales team, no systems, no funnels. I did no social media." And he said, "And you've grown your business dramatically during COVID when everyone was under lockdown so effortlessly." And then I was mentioning earlier that I tracked my whole life, like how was I achieving things? And I realized that I had always achieved success with ease. So I developed the Effortless Framework to show other people how to do it, how to create this life of choice, of freedom and fulfillment and wealth or whatever you want, how to do it in a more effortless way. So the Effortless Framework is a 13-step process that I take individuals through. So we have kind of group mentorships or whatever, but we take people through a certain process that shows them how to change everything that is holding them back. So for example, I was talking about you are creating your results and your beliefs and your habits and your decision-making style and your view of money and so on. So what I've done in the Effortless Framework is I have broken down every aspect of the subconscious program, as it were, that is holding anybody back. And I have done it in a step-by-step, day-by-day process, how to change it all. So how to change all of those things that have become you as you are now. So I think the way to summarize it is that traditionally we are told, decide on a goal that is realistic and then work towards it. Okay, so stretch yourself, but keep it real. Okay, so that's generally what people talk about goal setting. And my way is very different. So what I say is, don't tell me what's realistic. Don't tell me what you think you can achieve. Just tell me what you really want. This is on my business card, on my website. What do you really want? So I start there. What do you really want? And then when somebody opens up and tells me exactly the kind of life they want, then I show them how to become the person that will create those results quite effortlessly. So I work backwards from the life you want, and the Effortless Framework designs the you that will create that result in a more effortless way and in a more rapid way. So it's a system, because success and a life of freedom and choice isn't about struggle, and it isn't a secret either. It's just a system. And so that's what I developed, a system.
Thinking to an audience member who may be listening and they're looking at themselves in the mirror differently now, and they've identified what they're not happy with in their lives, what piece of advice would you give to that person listening right now?
I would give you this advice. I'll use an example. Okay, so let's talk about, money. Okay, so if somebody is not happy with how much they're earning right now, and they have fear and worries around their finances, and you look at your life and you think that's the one area you're not happy with, then I would ask or suggest that you get a sheet of paper and you write down everything you think and believe about money. Okay, so let's say you think to yourself, maybe you'll write, well, that your parents told you that money was the root of all evil, or your parents told you money doesn't grow on trees, or maybe you learned over the years that you have to work really hard, or that money's hard to make, and that your industry or the space in which you work in is oversaturated and your income is capped by what everyone else is doing. Whatever it is, just write it all down and then take a look at it. And then you will see that all of those things are reflected in your life. Because why would you want to become a rich person if you believe that rich people are rude and corrupt, for example? How are you ever going to find it easy to make money if you believe that it's really hard to make money? Because, and here's the thing, Debbie, I want to really stress this point, and I would love your audience to really get this point that I'm about to make. Your beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. Okay, so I'll say that again. Your beliefs are self-fulfilling prophecies. So if you have a belief that it's really difficult to earn more money, then that will be true for you. Because the belief that you have that it's difficult to earn money, without going into the neuroscience aspect of your brain and how it shows opportunities to you and so on, but just on a kind of higher level, if you believe it's hard to earn money, then you will not go for, let's say, if you're in a career in the corporate world, you're not likely to go for a job that's paying a lot more, because you will believe that that is a hard job and that you will have to work really hard. So your subconscious or your intuition will pull you back from applying for those kind of jobs. So the beliefs you have drive your thoughts. They drive your feelings, and your feelings drive your decisions. So all of these things create the results that you believe.
Yeah, no, I think that is amazing advice. And I'm hoping that everyone listening will literally take a hard look at themselves and think about what those belief systems are and how they can personally break that for themselves. Guinevere, I want to thank you so much for your wonderful advice and for being a guest on his podcast.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Always a pleasure.
If you would like further details about Guinevere, then please follow links in the show notes.